What's going on, everybody? It's your boy TrueChampionSteven, and we are back with another Vanguard 0 video for you guys. And today is going to be a very special one. We are doing my Tsukuyomi deck list. If you guys don't know, Tsukuyomi is probably one of the best decks in the format right now. I've said it is. Everyone else kind of agrees that this deck is really powerful. I cannot wait to show you guys my list for it, as well as kind of go through maybe why it's so powerful. Just all kinds of crazy stuff that this deck can do, and I can't wait to show it off to you guys here in this video. If you guys didn't know, deck lists on this channel work a bit differently than maybe other videos you might see on YouTube. Basically, the way it's going to work is I'm going to show you guys the deck list, go through all the card choices that I made, and then we're going to do some rank fights to show you guys how the deck works and stuff in terms of how you want to play with it, optimize your sequencing and whatnot. And then finally, I'm going to wrap up the video at the very end with a nice little outro, but in that outro, I'm going to talk about maybe my final thoughts on the deck, some possible changes you can make if maybe your card pool doesn't match mine, or you want to play the deck a little bit differently, so that way it kind of matches your play style, whatever you want to have. I always preach on this channel, trying to make sure that your card game experience is whatever you want it to be, so I always try and add those little things at the very end, so that way you guys, if you want to, can spice it up, basically. And yeah, that'll be it for this video, so hopefully you guys do enjoy. If you do, please be sure to let me know by leaving a like on this video, subscribing to the channel, and clicking that bell for notifications. It really does help me out and let me know what you guys are liking about the channel, what you're not liking. Also, if you guys do have any other pressing questions about the list that maybe I don't cover in this video, please be sure to leave them down in the comments below, or better yet, hop into my Twitch channel. I go live every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Pacific Standard Time in the afternoons, or sometimes in the mornings, and I do all kinds of Cardfight Vanguard 0 and Pokemon content over there, so feel free to come in, ask a question, hang out, and have a grand. But without further ado, let's go ahead and check out this deck list. All right, guys, here we are in our deck reviews, and this is my Tsukuyomi list. I have my Yuri skin on, feels really good. Hashtag Queen Dimension Police Empress, whatever you want to call her, she's the best. And here is the deck list. First things first, yes, I only have 3 Tsukuyomi. Second thing second, yes, I'm playing Stand Triggers. I will explain all these things. Number 1, I only have 3 Tsukuyomi because that's all I have. I don't have any more. I literally pulled 0 Tsukuyomis, and I was forced to craft 3 of them. I'm in the process of getting my 4th one done. It should be done by tomorrow. Do not yell at me, but I wanted to get this video out there for you guys. And hey, I've been playing with this deck a lot on ranked, and honestly, I do fine with just 3, so it works, okay? But if you have 4, good for you. Play 4, get rid of one of the Sakuyas, boom, you're fine. Anywho, I play Stand Triggers. That's the big thing that I chose to do in this deck that maybe a lot of people aren't keen on here. Basically, I'm playing 5 Stand Triggers for kind of the same reason that I played Stand Triggers in Garmor, that I've kind of been preaching about Stand Triggers this whole entire time. While it is true that, unlike other decks, Tsukuyomi generates a lot of card advantage, it's not exactly the most pressure advantage-based deck. So, in a game where you have to attack your opponent's rear guards, it's kind of hard to maybe get that little extra damage you want into your opponent. So, the sooner you get your opponent to 4 damage, the sooner you can win with Tom and stuff, and that's why crits are really good, but also the game kind of can go a long time, and when you have a card like a Stand Trigger, you can control your opponent's board and deal them damage, which I feel is more valuable to a deck that wants to take the game a little bit longer, like Tsukuyomi. So that's why I play Stand Triggers. Also, just some funny stuff can happen. Like, you can use Secretary Angel twice in a turn, which is super nice. You can, play Toms a little bit early and force 2 damage against your opponent, which is a neat thing you can do. Let's see. Tikitsuhime resetting for 17k is honestly super busted. There's a lot of niche scenarios where Stand Triggers are just really nice. And if you want to be a little bit aggressive, you can resend your red eyes and get some soul charges. If you didn't ride Tsukuyomis all the way, so you can get your soul back up to where it needs to be. Lots of neat little things here that stands that you do. But let's go ahead and talk about the actual deck. If you guys don't know, the Tsukuyomi ride chain starts off with Godhawk Ichibiyoshi, and then it goes into the grade 1 Tsukuyomi, and then it goes into the grade 2 Tsukuyomi, and then of course it goes into the grade 3 Tsukuyomi. Now they all have effects except for the grade 3 that let you look at the top 5 cards of your deck and look for the next stage of evolution and then ride it. So basically, Godhawk Ichibiyoshi lets me look at the top 5 and search for Gods of the Crescent Moon. Crescent Moon lets me search for Half Moon, and then Half Moon lets me search for the Full Moon. And then what you do is if you see it there, you write it, and then the rest go on the bottom in any order. It's a kind of random order, except triggers are preferred based on the log of the game. I'll explain that more later once we get into the actual ranked fights. And then you just go on there, and that's a really nice advantage engine, but it's also kind of the main strategy of the deck, because by putting those cards at the bottom, you actually see the cards, so you know what cards they are. So you'll have a stack of your deck, basically, and you'll know the order of each card. And if you use the log in Fight properly, or even better, a little notepad next to you, you can actually write down what cards you see. And because the deck can draw so many cards and go through the deck really fast, because it's OTT, you can actually achieve your stack scenario, and then you can kind of map out your turns perfectly throughout the rest of the game. And you can manipulate triggers. You can check more triggers. You can check triggers guaranteed. You can manipulate damage triggers. You can play around your opponent and draw PGs. You can do all kinds of neat little stuff with this deck as long as you have the stack memorized and as long as you kind of know when the stack is going to happen. So people call this like the big brain deck or the 1000 IQ deck or like the infinite auto win deck, whatever you want to call it. It basically is a deck that can manipulate its own luck. And we know that in this game, luck is a really big part of things in terms of triggers and in terms of offensive potential. So having that like extra potential is just really nice. So that's the overall arching strategy of the deck. And then everything else about the deck kind of accents that or complements that. For example, we have Silent Tom. Like if we already have super control of like what our stack is going to be, we can manipulate triggers and kind of guarantee Tom to hit. So if our opponent's at 4 damage, we can literally win the game automatically using a Silent Tom by swinging with our Vanguard, giving him a trigger, and now he hit. And now when he's boosted by a Gemini, he becomes 21k, and boom, we can guarantee kill them, even if they get a trigger on their 5th damage check. And because they cannot PG his attack, by the way. That's why Tom is an automatic win when your opponent's at 5 damage. So that's really cool. And then the rest of the deck just tries to complement that main win-con strategy. You have Tsukuyomi and Amaterasu technically to advance your stack. So even if you don't ride CEO, Amaterasu is one of the best backup rides. It probably is your best backup ride actually because it soul charges and looks at the top and puts it at the bottom. So it can still cycle through your stack, just not as fast as say Tsukuyomi. Also, you have cards like Secretary Angel, which when you have 6 or more cards to soul, draw a card and put a card from your hand to the bottom of the deck, more card cycling. You have Blue Eye here, which is the exact same skill except on boost. And then finally, you have Takitsuhime, which is a really good attacker. And then, of course, you have your 2 Red Eye here because sometimes you don't get the full moon Ryan Chain, and cards like Takitsuhime, Blue Eye, and Angel require 6 cards in Soul, so you need to find some way to Soul Charge other than Tsukuyomi, and that's what Red Eye is for. So that's basically like all the neat little cards that are the main strategy of the deck, and let's talk about one specific tech that I'm playing that I don't really see a lot of people doing, which is Sakuya. I'm playing Goddess of Flower Divination Sakuya. I'm not really playing it for the skill of, you know, putting cards back to your hand, but that could be useful sometimes. Really, this card is in here because the only matchup that is, I would, in my mind, an auto loss for Tsukuyomi is Imperial Daughter. And now, while I've said before that Imperial Daughter isn't really the biggest deal in the world for most decks, it kind of is a big deal for Tsukuyomi because that deck is kind of designed to beat a deck like Tsukuyomi. So having a card like Sakuya being a 14k attacker boosted by a 7k hitting 21 every single turn is really nice. A lot of people tell me that CEO Amaterasu is the best way to counter Imperial Daughter because it also has the same effect of 4k. But the reason why I don't love relying on CEO the entire time is because CEO soul charges every single turn. So you get closer and closer to that deck out scenario. And if you're forced to swing with your Vanguard, like, I don't know, 4 turns in a row, you see what? Like 9 cards, and they play and if they play like enough dark cats, like you could in theory deck yourself out a lot faster with CEO than say with Sakuya. So that's why I like Sakuya more than CEO. Also, the only reason I'm playing Sakuya in here is to beat Imperial Daughter and as a really clutch ride. And the only other card that I would even have in this deck besides Sakuya would be Uraili. And frankly, Uraili doesn't really do anything against Imperial Daughter, but it does a lot of other good things against other decks. But I'm really a big fan of Sakuya just for the Imperial Daughter matchup. But if you're not afraid of the Imperial Daughter matchup, then by all means, just go ahead and play your 1 of or 2 of Uraili and have a party. So yeah, guys, that's why I'm playing Sakuya. That's why that's kind of how the whole entire strategy of the deck works. It's really simple, honestly. Once you get down to the nitty gritty, people like to hype this deck up as a really complicated, impossible deck to understand that you have to be a super big brain to play. Not really. As long as you have a good grasp of what resources you need and kind of your overall winning image, it's pretty easy to figure out what you're supposed to do the more times you play with the deck. So really, it just takes practice. So don't be afraid to try using this deck if you think it's too big brain for you. It's definitely not. Especially, all right, guys, here we go against a Grand Blue deck. Ooh, this is gonna be very interesting. I don't think I've fought a Grand Blue deck yet using Tsukuyomi, but it'll be a very good kind of demonstration of how powerful stands can be. Having stands against this matchup is gonna be super huge for us. So we have the full Tsukuyomi in hand. I honestly, I'll put this back, but everything else about my hand is super awesome. Okay. Now, one thing I want to make sure you guys understand about this video is that I'm not going to actually be taking notes during this video. What I'm actually going to do is use the in-game view log as well as just my general math skills to kind of determine where my stack is, because I kind of want to preach to you guys using these resources whenever you can, because this will just help you get naturally better at the deck. So, for example, we already know that there's 3 triggers at the bottom, and they're all stands. We have a PG and a Tom. If I were to take notes, I would take note of kind of what order they go in. So the first 3 cards are going to be the stand triggers, and then the next 2 cards are going to be the grade 2 and the grade 1, Tom and PG. Be sure to mark, though, if you want to take notes on what grade 2s are there, if it's a Tom or not. You either put not Tom or Tom, whichever one's fine. And then for PGs, I like marking those as well. And then for triggers, I tend to put what trigger they are, but I'll do it in like a way that's like 3 trig, because sometimes what the AI will do is that if there's multiple triggers, it'll actually randomize what order they go in. So if you see them in the log in that order, it might actually be a different order by the time you get there. So draws could be before heals, which means you then draw the heals, which can be super annoying. Also, be sure to always check your log during your opponent's turn, because you kind of can't do anything during your opponent's turn anyway. And it honestly doesn't matter. We're going to get our soul charge of 2. Also, we know that our 9 cards now is our stack, so we're currently 19 cards away from anything of importance. So we're just going to go ahead and attack. Let's go ahead and use the drive check. Okay, so now we are officially 10 cards, 18 cards to our stack. And our stack is, like we said, 3 stand triggers, a grade 2 and a Tom, a grade 2 and a grade 1 PG. And then the next part of our stack is these. It's going to be a grade 2, a heal, a PG, an Amaterasu, and a blue eye. All right, so the Amaterasu will be the last card, and then we draw the blue eye. All right, cool. So we know pretty much the first 10 cards of our stack. And once we get like a good grasp on the first 10 cards, you begin to just like start cycling through everything really fast, and then you can start making your own stack as you go along with cards like Angel, Blue Eye, and just the general kind of thing. But the important thing to know here is that we are currently 18 cards away from the beginning of our stack, which we know is 3 stand triggers. So we can actually do a lot of big damage on the first turn of our stack, which will be super exciting to do. And my opponent is doing the whole diggity darn superior ride thing. It looks like that's pretty cool. Good for him doing that thing. He's playing stand triggers. Oh, he's playing crits. It looks like. Yeah, he's playing crits. So that's interesting. What? Well, I mean, why wouldn't he boost with the thing then? I guess it just wastes time, I guess. All right, but we are still gonna get hit this turn. So if he gets a crit, that could be pretty bad for us. I don't have a PG currently in my hand, so we could be taking a lot of damage early, but we just take the 1, so that's pretty okay. And then it's going to be the full moon rising on our next turn. We're not actually going to get a card from the superior ride because we know that we don't have any more in our deck. We only own the 3. And then there was, a PG and then 2 triggers there. All right, that's interesting. So now we are officially, what was it? So our stack is now 15 cards, so we're 9 cards away from our stack. We're not going to get to our stack this turn, but we will be able to cycle pretty much right to it. So now we know that we're 8 cards away from our stack. I'm not going to need more than 1 Gemini. I'm not going to need more of these in this game. 2 Geminis is more than what we need. More than good enough. Let's go ahead and call this. I know there's no more stand triggers in my deck because the rest from the bottoms, there's no point in trying to play for a stand trigger. I know that that's kind of pointless. So I'm just going to choose to attack the rear guard here. And then there's a draw trigger. So I think, if my math is correct, we should be pretty much at our stack. Let's see. So we got what? 14 cards, 13, 16. This is 17. We need, I think, 1 more card, and then we're at the stack, guys. So if we take a damage on the next turn, I will say, though, that with no PGs and no intercepts in play, we could be in a very big pickle here if my opponent checks a critical trigger, which is very possible. So that kind of is scary. However, I would like to mention that we do have 2 heal triggers, and I believe we have access to 1 of them before the stack. So let's just double check here. Let's just double check here what the where the heal triggers are. So there's 1 on the bottom that we know of, and then there appears to be no other ones. I don't remember seeing a heal trigger in the first 5 cards. Oh, there's another one. So yeah, both my heal triggers are at the bottom. Not like the bottom, but they're in the stack. And he's attacking a rear guard here. So if my opponent doesn't get a critical, we do not lose. But it is kind of scary, if you ask me. And there's 2 cards that aren't crits that are gone. How many crits are gone from his deck? 2? He definitely plays the 4 of these guys. So let's we can only really hope here. That's a draw trigger. That's fine. I could really care less about a draw trigger. Because the bad thing is that all of our PGs were sent to the bottom as well as all of our stand triggers, which normally that's okay because then we can start cycling. But now we're going to get our turn, and we should be at our stack pretty much right now. So if we draw a stand trigger, we'll know that we're at our stack, which will be pretty cool. If we don't, then we won't know. So this is like a nice little way, just like to make sure that you have a good sense of where you are in terms of your stack is kind of important. I don't think it's necessary to always take notes, but generally it's just good practice to like get used to it. I think we're going to do it this way. And now the question becomes, I believe in our power to check a stand trigger this turn, so I'm going to choose to play in a way that maximizes our damage output for that. So we're going to do it like this. Then we're going to, I could get double stand trigger. What if I did that? That's a little greedy to try and hope for. So I'm just going to do this. I'm banking that we're going to get at least 1 this turn. We could get 2, obviously, but 2 wouldn't really be an extra damage per se. Boom. Okay, cool. So I was one card behind on my stack, but it ended up I ended up playing for one stand anyway. The best, it doesn't really matter what I give power to. I think the best course of action is to give the power here. And let's see if he gets a damage trigger. He does not, so we will push him to 5 damage this turn, which means on the following turn we can just win the game using Silent Tom, which will be super cool. And we do have double intercept plus PG, and there's no way right now for Granblue to retire rear guard, so or restand because he's not playing stand trigger, so it's kind of impossible for my opponent to do an extra damage to us this turn. So we will get our guaranteed next turn. We have the Silent Tom, we have the Gemini in play, so we can just guarantee win the game. Also, keep in mind that my opponent has 3 PGs gone, so I probably don't even need Tom. If I'm being honest with you guys, I don't even probably need Tom to win this game, but it's okay. Yeah, so there's Ninth Mistle. Now, what's interesting here is that I know there's going to be 2 more stand triggers within the near future here. I think the next 2 cards are literally stand triggers. So, like, what I could do is not use Tsukuyomi Skull in the next turn, swing rear guard with, like, my Tom, and then just, like, swing Vanguard, and then restand Tom using a stand trigger, because obviously my opponent has, sorry, swing Vanguard to one of his rear guards, restand Tom using a stand trigger, and then guarantee the win. Or, better yet, what I can do is it's called double Tom. I don't really need to do that, but I can just promote Gemini and then call my other Tom on the other side. But there's like a lot of neat ways that I can do this that will kind of maximize our damage potential. Let's say if he gets a heal trigger. He gets a crit. He needed that last turn to potentially win the game, so feels bad for the opponent. Luck is mistimed. But there's a PG because we drew one off of our top deck because it was the bottom card of our deck before our stack, so that's pretty awesome. We're going to draw a stand trigger. Yes, we did. So we're going to right skip. I'm going to just choose to call this Tom here, obviously. Now, I know the next card's a stand trigger, or at least within the next 2, but just to be safe, I will just guarantee call a second Tom, because I don't want to risk not having another Tom swing. So I'm going to swing Tom at this. Also, I want to make sure I have 2 intercepts in case my opponent somehow 6 damage heals, and the next turn kind of happens. I don't want to just, like, blatantly assume that I'm going to win the game, but it's pretty much assumed here. So we're going to give the power to this Tom, actually, and play around a 6 damage heal. That's what's nice about having double Tom is in this exact scenario is that I can actually play around a 6 damage heal this way, which is like super fun. So let's see if he gets the 6 damage heal and annoys me to death. He does not. That's a GG. Tsukuyomi showing it off. Yeah, so you guys, you don't need to take notes. Like this page is blank, you know? I did all that just based off my own memory and knowing what the initial cards in the stack were and just doing some basic math. You don't need to be like super big brain and super try hard all the time. I will say though that if you ever want to kind of get a guaranteed stack and like be 100% sure of what your stack is and practice notes, or the notes are the best way to go. The log can get kind of confusing if you're not used to it, but using the log to take notes is kind of the same thing as using the log to remember your stack, so it's going to be pretty good. Our next game here is against a Bermuda Triangle player, which will be very interesting to see. I haven't bought that much Bermuda Triangle, but I have seen kind of some weird lists going around. This could also be obviously a BB Farmer, and if it is, I'll skip this game, but let's see what we get. Oh, this is okay, so this is an interesting hand. I generally love keeping PGs in my hand, but I have 0. I'm actually going to do it this way because I like having guaranteed 3s and 1s in this deck. Unless you have a guaranteed like grade 1 Tsukuyomi piece, I don't like mulling for the other stuff. And what is this? The grade 3 searcher? Yeah, it is. Okay. Whoa, this is like a. Oh, it's okay. So this is the SPC Shizuku. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. So yeah, like we're obviously gonna pray for a grade 1 Tsukuyomi here, but if we don't get it, having the Amaterasu and the grade 2 Tsukuyomi will still get us enough cards in Soul over time to get the correct amount of stuff we need. And there's the grade 1 Tsukuyomi, so it's looking pretty good so far. My little greedy play a little bit paid off there, so that's nice. But yeah, guys, I think the best way to kind of get better with this deck is just to make sure that you practice the core fundamentals, which is understanding what cards you need to look for, understanding what resources you have, like taking notes, like the view log, like the number of decks down here you have. This is a very useful thing, is like the actual deck number. So now I know that there's 4 cards at the bottom of the deck. Make that 5 cards because I drove check a card and put it at the bottom. Actually, no, that's not true. I damage checked it. Never mind. There's 4 cards at the bottom that I know the order of, and I believe I only saw 1 stand trigger there. Let's see if I was right. I believe I only saw 1 stand trigger. Yes, I did. And then, no, a stand and a draw, and then 2 grade 2s. And then it goes Tom stand, grade 2 thingy. And then my opponent's going to go pretty hard in the paint here. But it's looking like they got a stand trigger. What happened? I don't know. They swung rear guard, then I see. They swung van, then swung rear guard. I see. And then we get a grade 2. Oh, that's 2 grade 3s put to the bottom of the deck, guys. And sorry, it's 2 grade 3s gone. I only own 3, so we might not. Oh, the full moon is not gonna rise this game, you guys. So we're gonna be a bit behind here. But luckily, I do have Amaterasu, which is pretty much the same thing. And my opponent disconnects. Oh, that's a little annoying. It's okay though. We're gonna go ahead and call this Gemini here. I'm gonna go ahead and call this Blue Eye here. I'm gonna go ahead and swing at this rear guard because I need to advance some kind of damage in board state here. Hopefully we don't get a stand trigger. That'd be kind of a feels bad. A heal trigger here would be pretty dope. Or nothing. That's fine. Nothing's fine too. So now we know that there's what? 1, 6, 10 cards. 14 cards away from our stack. And our stack is, let's go to the bottom here. Scroll down. All right, we got a grade. We have three triggers, and it goes a grade 2, a grade 1, and then heal, stand, and then draw. Okay. After the first 4 cards, which we know have a stand and a draw within them. I will say the hardest thing about the view log is that you do have to scroll all the way back up. I wish you could like filter it to like what you have and what your opponent did. You know, that'd be pretty nice. But you know, these little minor things are annoying. That's where that's where the notes come in. Obviously, I don't want to do it though because I don't want to like. I would hate it like if a tournament actually comes out and then like you're not allowed to take notes during a tournament and then it realizes that you're not actually allowed to do that. So for rank fight, it's fine to do it in case you want that safety. But if you want to practice the proper skills you might need in the future for like really good Tsukuyomi play, try and use it without it. I never take notes on stream. When the only time I ever take notes is when I'm like try hard grinding by myself at home. Okay, so we know we had what 5, 10, 11, 15, 16, 17. So 3 cards away from the stack. I was like doing the quick math in my head. 3 cards away from the stack. Okay. Because I used Tsukuyomi skill twice. There should be a stand trigger pretty soon too. Because I've only seen 2 stand triggers go to the bottom, so we don't have any more. But if we do, it's fine. Drawing that, so now we're 2 cards away from the stack. I'm just gonna put it there. I got 3 PGs in my hand, which is pretty nice. Heal trigger, really good heal trigger, like exponentially good. So like, yeah, the deck doesn't need Goddess of the Full Moon obviously to be like the best it can be. What's really nice about Goddess of the Full Moon though is that she draws 2 cards and also drive checks. But CEO advances the same amount of cards. She just does it in a less board state kind of way. She does it more just kind of like a more passive soul chargey, look at the top card kind of way. Being able just to cycle through your deck and get the pieces you actually need to achieve your proper win condition combos is really nice. And that's why Tsukuyomi is the ideal grade 3 instead of CEO. But CEO is more than fine for advancing your stack. So in case you're ever wondering why we play CEO still, it's because she's the best backup grade 3 that this deck has for sure. Also, I have had points used for Mega Blast to like win games because there are points when like you know what the next 5 cards are and you're like, are there PGs in those next 5 cards? Yes. I'm just gonna go ahead and drop those PGs really quick and then survive another turn. That's a really cool thing you can do like super late game because the deck doesn't really counterblast unless you're on Tsukuyomi. So if you're on CEO, you can save the counterblast with Mega Blast and it can go up and it's pretty cool. So there's a Tom. So now we know if a grade 1 is the next card that we damage check, then we know for a fact what the next few cards are going to be. It'll be a stand and a draw. So let's see. It's a great. Oh, draw trigger. Do I draw a stand? Okay, so I think we're at the stack. There should be a stand trigger within the top check here, or the soul charge, of course. I drew the stand. Okay, cool. So now I can just right skip using the effect of CEO. I can make sure I know what stack I'm at. I'm going to go ahead and place that on top of the deck. I'm going to choose to call this little girly here. I'm going to go ahead and swing at the rear guard. My opponent only has 2 cards in hand, so like against a Premium Child deck, I don't really need to advance my stack as much. But as you guys can see, we're doing just fine. Oh, I forgot to use below. I forgot to attack. I should have attacked unboosted. That was a terrible misplay on my part. I do apologize for that. I forgot blue I was there, but it doesn't matter. We got the stand trigger. The stand trigger is less important, but I can just like get rid of his attackers. So that'll be nice. I'm still gonna give the power to Sakuya, and there's a heal trigger. So in this exact scenario, I guess it depends on like what he checks, obviously. But I'm just to still get the power to Sakuya. There's no better thing to give the power to. My opponent's kind of due for a heal trigger, so there's a very good chance that if he doesn't have a PG in his hand, he can definitely just heal, which would be interesting. Because you know the game will last another turn, but it kind of doesn't matter at this point. But yeah, I highly recommend making sure that you have 4 Tsukuyomis is definitely the ideal number if you want to like be ultra consistent with this deck. Because as you can see, I'm not on Tsukuyomi, and now I can't be on Tsukuyomi. There's 2 in the damage drop zone, and there's 1 in my soul, so it is impossible for me to get my Tsukuyomi. I think he just soul charged a heal, right? Is that a heal trigger? Yes, it was. Okay, so there goes one of his heal triggers. But I really like Pacifica's like add a card to your hand, put it at the bottom kind of thing. It's pretty cool. I think it's a little bit better than CEO. I do like stacking my deck a little bit, or like getting that clairvoyance type of thing, but like being able to draw a card is nice, and putting it to the bottom is pretty nice. It's like a mini little cycle, which I do enjoy. I think it has to go to the bottom though, which is like the worst part. I can leave my card on top if I want to. All right, so he's gonna call Reindeer. Does Pacifica skill mean that they can attack, or what? Because you can superior call units, right? So I guess you can actually hit me with more units by superior calling them. That's kind of cool. But And you're like, well, you'll thin the deck after you check, which is interesting. Oh, that kind of sucks because now, well, I mean, you were gonna call, I guess, 3 anyway, but. And there's a heal trigger too, so that's interesting. So we kind of need a Silent Tom this turn, and I think I've soul charged 2 of them. I soul charged 2 toms. I soul charged 1, damage check 1. Is there 1 in here? I think there was 1 on the bottom of the deck like 3 turns ago, so it should be within the first 6 cards. First 6 or 7 cards should be a Silent Tom, based on my quick maths. So we're a little bit in trouble here of not being able to finish off our opponent, but their hand is pretty light, so the chances of them actually having a, what's it called? PG is, I would say, unlikely. We still have 1 stand in the deck as well, which we can easily clairvoyance and see. Plus, having Blue Eye in combination with the 21k attack is really nice. They will go for the Mega Blast. Superior Call, Blazer Idols, and these using the Blazer Eyes effect to increase your power. This is a pretty good turn for my opponent. I'm surprised they didn't want to get another grade 2 in play. Like, I know the offensive power of Reindeer would have been nice to maybe push an extra damage, but or have more power, I guess, but wouldn't calling a grade 2 there kind of guarantee them another turn in the game? Like, isn't that just better? It just seems better in my opinion to do that. But well, I mean, chef don't judge, right? Like, who am I to say what the best moves are, right? I don't play Bermuda, so I have no clue. There's my Silent Tom, but in this exact, oh wait, I have Blue Eye. Yes, correct play. Put it on top so that way I can grab it with Blue Eye. Boom. For a second, I was like, oh man, it sucks that he's right there. In this exact scenario, I'm going to swing Sakuya unboosted first in case I do get the stand trigger because I believe I'm pretty close to it. I have no guarantee at this point though where it is, and I can still hit this even though he gets the damage trigger. And now I can draw the Tom, put the draw on the bottom of the deck, and then get 2 drive triggers and potentially get a stand trigger. And if I get the stand trigger, I can win the game guaranteed. Especially if this last card obviously isn't a PG. So there's no stand trigger there. Is that last card a PG? It is a PG. So my opponent will have 1 more turn. This is actually a little bit scary here because now what could happen is... Oh, wait, here's the thing, though. Hold on. I just realized I think this could be a heal trigger on top of my deck. I could obviously have a heal trigger on top of my deck right now. I have no way of really knowing what this top card is without going through the view log and taking a bunch of time, but I could easily figure out what it is, and I would know for a fact whether or not I lose this game. But my opponent does need to get 1 more attack through. That heal trigger the turn before was really useful for them. There's the Goldsrock Rio, so we only have 1 PG in our hand. Not having access to Tom is a real nail biter there. I just had a Silent Tom a turn earlier, would have been nice. So this is where Tsukuyomi would have been obviously preferred because I could have gone through my deck a lot more and drawn the Tom instead of just like looking at it and being like, okay, now I can get it. But let's see, we still have a chance to 6 damage heal though because we know for a fact that a heal is coming. But yeah, that just goes to show guys like how powerful Tsukuyomi can be in terms of achieving your actual win condition. Had I had a Tom, I would have won, is the moral of the story. And Tsukuyomi would have given me a Tom. Let's see if we get the heal trigger though and still get the win regardless. We do not. That is a GG from our opponent. Very good play from our opponent. Obviously the heal trigger, they needed that. Otherwise they would have lost for sure, but they were due for one, so it was totally reasonable. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for the kind of demonstrations on Tsukuyomi. The deck is not unbeatable in no way because it still falls to certain inconsistencies, especially my list here of not being able to actually have 4 Tsukuyomi. Once I get the 4th one, I honestly think that like all those problems are going to go away for me because the deck becomes ultra consistent at that point. I 100% guarantee it. But overall, just make sure that you understand these 2 things about the deck. Is that it's not really big brain. It's more about proper practice and resource management / resource guidance. Also, understand what cards you need to win the game. Tom, Gemini, and your opponent at 4 damage. You can win almost any game, no matter what kind of situation. But guys, with all that being said, let's go ahead and wrap up this video. All right, guys, we just got done playing some ranked fights and showing off how to use Tsukuyomi. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the alternate options that exist for the deck other than what I've played. First things first, the obvious thing you can do is instead of running stand triggers, you can run critical triggers. And the best reason why you want to run critical triggers is that the ultimate win condition for the deck is your opponent's at 4 or 5 damage, and then you call Silent Tom. So the idea is the faster you get your opponent to that point, the sooner you can win. However, there are little problems with that. Is that number one is that if you run crits, you run into the problem of if your opponent is, say, Garmor or Granblue, a deck that just like has grade 2s every single turn and still gives you adequate pressure back, like say Razors, it's hard for you to kind of keep up with the potential aggression if you don't check the crits. So if your goal is to just do extra damage, you should also try and gain advantage, which I feel like aggression and advantage is the perfect combination to lead to stand triggers being really strong in the deck. Also, I mentioned earlier how you can do some really busted combos with Secretary Angel and just some neat little sequencing things to get to your stack faster. And in my opinion, the best way to win with the deck is not to just set up this ultimate Tom combo and win. It's to get to your stack, because getting to your stack will then make that ultimate Tom combo even easier. So I think having stand triggers to not only advance your stack faster, but also just be a nice little consistent way to control your opponent's board as well as deal damage to them is going to be really nice for the deck. Second, I think the grade hues are pretty optimal. I've seen people run more copies of Red Eye, less copies of Hime, and like Oracle Guardian Wise Man because they want like really powerful grade 2s that don't need to have 6 cards in Soul in case they whiff their you know, their Tsukuyomi right chains and stuff, which I can totally understand that kind of safety consistency play. However, I find so much value out of Hime, especially in this meta where like I see a lot of people playing like Enigma Cyclone or Eisenkugel or even the occasional Amber Dragon playing Lava Arm Dragon. Having a 12k attacker is way more value than people give it credit for. So I really like having Hime over any Wiseman, but your mileage may vary. Play Wiseman if you want it. It's definitely a good backup ride too, in case you don't get your Tsukuyomi stuff, for sure. Like the deck has no good ride besides grade 2 Tsukuyomi, so having another decent ride is pretty good. And then finally, the grade 1s, the really only other grade 1 I've ever seen people use, and I've used myself, is Cocoa. And I would never run more than 2 of this card, by the way. And it basically is in the deck for 2 reasons. One, it's you know, a scry effect, a clairvoyance effect, whatever you want to call it. Same thing as Amaterasu, we can look and then put it on the bottom, and it's really nice because it advances your stack. And earlier on in the game, you can be a bit more aggressive, maybe, because I can see a stand trigger and I can go, oh, okay, cool, swing at the rear guard, attack my Vanguard, stand the rear guard, attack with you now again. You know, guaranteeing stuff like that for like little niche plays now and then is really good. However, I prefer the combination of Gemini and Blue Eye. I prefer Blue Eye because Blue Eye does the same thing, but he does it every single turn versus just that one time you get to use Cocoa. And then I prefer Gemini because Gemini is AK base, and AK plus the AK of Tom equals 16. And there's a lot of, you know, grade 11k, grade 3 Vanguard, so having 16ks is really nice. You can guarantee or even play around 6 damage heals, which is really nice. And those are kind of like the only choices I've seen people make. I've seen the occasional Weather Girl Milk, the occasional White Hair Inaba, but these cards just seem just really bad to me, and I don't recommend anyone play them unless they're your only option. Circle Megas is also another card that I've seen people just like desperately have because they don't maybe they don't have Cocoas or something. But I definitely think Cocoa is the only other grade 1 option, like an optimized version of the deck. But yeah, guys, with all that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys did enjoy this deck profile. I really like Tsukuyomi right now. I think it's literally one of the best decks in the format. I think it will be the best OTT deck as well until Battle Sisters come out later on in the break meta. So if you want to get good with it and you want to play OTT, this is the deck you should really understand and try and win with. Also, if you want to try and deal with Tsukuyomi, it helps to kind of understand how the deck actually works, because some people just think, oh, there's nothing I can do. They're just going to stack and then kill me. But not really. You can deny them damage, so that way they can't cycle to their stack as fast enough. You can pressure them extra hard or take advantage of turns where maybe they don't play enough intercepts and then try and rush them with damage. People have done that against me, and they've seen some success for sure when that happens. So there are ways you can kind of deal with the deck as well in case you're not playing it. But the key thing is to understand kind of how they want to win and playing around it, because having intercepts can naturally stop Tom. Having just less than 4 damage can naturally stop Tom. Obviously, you can't control that as much. That's another big thing, too, that I forgot to mention, by the way, guys, of why stand triggers are really good, is that if your opponent is at 4 damage, you could win with Tom. If your opponent's at 5 damage, you almost always win with Tom. You know what I'm saying? So being able to always make sure your opponent's at 5 damage with the power of stand triggers is really cool. I can't have my opponent at 5 damage most of the time if I'm playing crits, and I check the crits all the time because my opponent, I might just PG them and then stay at 3, which would be totally awful for our finishing Tom turns. So, like, it's really important to make sure that you understand kind of what crits do and how they interact in this game, because they can actually ruin your setup sometimes and be kind of not ideal in some cases. So that's all my thoughts on the deck, you guys. If you have any questions, I do go live every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday over on Twitch. I am playing this deck a lot on the ladder right now. I'm probably going to be playing it later tonight on stream. Who knows? But yeah, as always, you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please be sure to work hard, rest easy, and live well. And I will see you all next time. Peace.